Good evening, folks at home and around the world, and welcome to another edition of the Hour of the Time. I'm William Cooper, and I strongly suggest that you have pen and paper by your side all during this episode of the Hour of the Time, for I'm going to be giving you a complete bibliography. You see, folks, I own a library that is better than most city libraries in this country, and I'm going to give you the names, authors, and publishing companies of the books that will start you off to bring you up to speed to where I am at. And you're just going to get what you need to get you to a beginning level tonight. I suggest, if you can, that you tape record this episode of the Hour of the Time so that you can play the tape back and refer to it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, folks, the first thing in the bibliography that you need to get started, I'm going to recommend to you is a book. This is a thick book. The title of it is Our Ageless Constitution. Our Ageless Constitution. Now, I'm not going to say these things slow. I'm going to repeat everything twice, but I'm going to keep on going because I've got a lot of information to give you. Either make a tape of this broadcast or order the tape, or if you can, write fast and get the information down, but get it because you need to read these books. You need them for your personal library. You need them to know what's going on in the world and who's bringing it about. Our Ageless Constitution, edited by W. David Stedman, S-T-E-D-M-A-N, and Lavon G. Lewis. It's part of the Stedman Liberty Library, published by W. David Stedman Associates. Now, I don't know where you can order this book from, folks. I got it, as I always get my books, from used bookstores, from people who find something and send it to me, from scrounging in thrift shops, from new bookstores. I have a library that's unbelievable. Most of you would be awed by the books that I have. Most of my income throughout the years has gone toward stocking this library, simply because I learned a long time ago that the sum total of all man's knowledge is contained in books, but you have to root it out. Not all books are true. Not all books tell the truth. Not all books are all lies. It's sort of a mixture, but you have to have the information available to do the research and come up with the answers. Okay, now once you've got that book, you have everything you need to know about the history, the ideals, the purpose, everything behind the founding of this country. And if you don't know that, you don't know anything about this country, so you need it. The next book that I'm going to recommend, because you need to know the symbology and the history and who these people really are, is a book that was originally printed in the 1700s. In fact, the beginning, it's called the Templar's Chart, the Masonic Chart, the Templar Chart, and the beginning has a letter to the editors of the New York Express, and it's signed by Benjamin Franklin. It's a very old book. It has the complete history, according to Freemasonry, of Freemasonry. It's entitled, and this is the title of the book, The True Masonic Chart, or Hieroglyphic Monitor, containing all the emblems explained in the degrees of entered apprentice, fellow craft, master mason, mark master, pass master, most excellent master, royal ark, royal master, and select master. Designed and duly arranged agreeably to the lecturers by R.W. Jeremy L. Cross, G.L., to which are added illustrations, charges, songs, etc., with additions and emendations. Also, a complete history of Freemasonry by a brother. This copy that I have is the 12th and stereotype edition, printed in New York, published by A.S. Barnes and Company, 51 John Street, in 1854. You can find treasures like this if you look. Most people, though, sit back and say, oh, I don't know where to find that. I don't know anything about doing research. Why don't you tell me? That's not the way to do it, folks. Not the way to do it. The second book I'm going to recommend here that you get is a book by Joseph Campbell, probably the world's foremost authority on myth and mythology. This book is entitled Primitive Mythology, The Masks of God. Again, it's by Joseph Campbell, Primitive Mythology, The Masks of God. And I believe it's printed by Penguin Books. Okay. Next one is also by Joseph Campbell, Occidental Mythology, The Masks of God. It's by Joseph Campbell, entitled Occidental Mythology, The Masks of God, also published by Penguin Books. Now, I've got all these books stacked up around here, so if you hear a moment of silence, it's because I'm reaching for something. I literally have surrounded myself with stacks of books. I'm going to give you the title, author, and publisher of as many as I can, starting with the most important for you to use to get started with and working on down. Next one is by Joseph Campbell again. The title is Creative Mythology, The Masks of God. Creative Mythology, The Masks of God, also by Joseph Campbell and published by Penguin Books. The next one, folks, is The Sacred and the Profane. The title is The Sacred and the Profane. The subtitle is The Nature of Religion, the Significance of Religious Myth, Symbolism, and Ritual Within Life and Culture. And it's by Mircea Eliade. Mircea Eliade. It's actually translated from a foreign language. It's printed by Harcourt Brace Jovanovich. Harcourt Brace Jovanovich. Next one is an important book. Once you get into the symbology of the mystery schools and the occult, you learn that geometry and Hermetic science become very important. Now, this book is entitled Occult Geometry and Hermetic Science of Motion and Number. Occult Geometry and Hermetic Science of Motion and Number, a combined edition by A.S. Riley. A.S. Riley. And this is published by Divorce Publications. That's spelled D-E-V as in Victor, O-R-S-S. And there's some treasures in these books. Now, these are books that most people pass by. They look at them and say, oh, this is boring, or I would never learn anything from that, and most people would never even pick up one of these books. But I'm telling you, folks, you better start. Next one is entitled Celestial Symbols. Celestial Symbols. Symbolism and Doctrine, Religious Traditions, and Temple Architecture by Alan H. Barber. Alan H. Barber. And this is published by Horizon Publishers. Sometimes you get to understand that even the names of the publishers and sometimes the name of the authors are symbolic. Horizon, as you've already learned, means Horus rising. Horizon Publishers and Distributors Incorporated, P.O. Box 490, Bountiful, Utah. And that book contains some revelations. Another one is entitled Many Moons. Many Moons. The Myth and Magic, Fact and Fantasy of Our Nearest Heavenly Body by Diana Bruton. Introduction by Colonel James Irwin of the Apollo 11 mission. Oh yes, gets very interesting. Very interesting. And this is published by Prentice Hall Press, New York, London, Toronto, Sydney, Tokyo, Singapore, so I know you can find this book. Now, we're going to get into some other areas now, and I'm going to attempt to sort of explain to you some of the things that are in these books. And you need to start with some history. The first book that I want to recommend to you is entitled Holy Blood, Holy Grail by Bijant, Lincoln, and Lee. Bijant, Lincoln, and Lee. Holy Blood, Holy Grail. The next one is the Messianic Legacy. The Messianic Legacy by the same authors, Bijant, Lincoln, and Lee. And then there's another one called The Temple and the Lodge. The Temple and the Lodge by the same authors. And then the fourth one by these authors also is called The Dead Sea Scrolls Deception. The Dead Sea Scrolls Deception by the same authors. Now read those books, read them in that order. The last one just came out. I've just ordered it myself, have not read it, but I know because I've read the other three that I need to read it, and it's going to be just as revealing as the first three. Now, none of these books put together the whole picture. I've done that. But they all have pieces to the puzzle that you need to find for yourself so that you'll know that I'm not leading you down the garden path. That's important. Now, in that series of books, folks, it outlines the history as they have discovered it of a secret society whose sole purpose is to protect the bloodline of the family which traditionally throughout history has claimed the divine right to rule the rest of us. It's important that you know about that family because the same people also rule this country, folks. They're all related, if you haven't figured that out yet. And if you want to find out how related they are, start looking into an organization organized in Cincinnati called the Knights of the Golden Circle. The Knights of the Golden Circle. The next book that I want you to pick up and read is entitled Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar. A biography by Michael Grant. Now, in this book, it outlines a lot of things about ancient Rome, their political machinery, the way that Rome was really ruled by families, which is going to be the same way in the New World Order, I can guarantee you that. And it talks a lot about the ancient religions in this book. It's very revealing. It's a biography, it's factual, it's not fiction at all, and you need to read it. The next book is an extremely important book and puts a lot of pieces of the puzzle together. And the person who wrote this book didn't actually set out to even write about this subject. What he was doing was trying to research the Peasants' Revolt in England and ended up writing a book about Freemasonry because of what he found out in his investigation into the Peasants' Revolt in England. And that man is John J. Robinson. John J. Robinson. The title of the book is Born in Blood, The Lost Secrets of Freemasonry. Born in Blood, The Lost Secrets of Freemasonry. I'm just going to read to you a little bit from the dust jacket here. Its mysterious symbols and rituals had been used in secret for centuries before Freemasonry revealed itself in London in 1717. Once known, Freemasonry spread throughout the world and attracted kings, emperors, and statesmen to take its sacred oaths. It also attracted great revolutionaries such as George Washington and Sam Houston in America, Juarez in Mexico, Garibaldi in Italy, and Bolivar in South America. It was outlawed over the centuries by Hitler, Mussolini, and the Ayatollah Khomeini. But where had this powerful organization come from? What was it doing in those secret centuries before it rose from underground more than 270 years ago? And why was Freemasonry attacked with such intense hatred by the Roman Catholic Church? This amazing detective story answers these questions and proves that the Knights Templar in Britain, fleeing arrest and torture by Pope and King, formed a secret society of mutual protection that came to be called Freemasonry. Based upon years of meticulous research, this book solves the last remaining mysteries of the Masons, their secret words, symbols, and allegories, whose true meanings had been lost in antiquity, with a richly drawn background of the bloody battles, the opportunistic kings and scheming popes, the tortures and religious persecution that were the Middle Ages. It is an important book that may require that we take a new look at the history of events leading to the Protestant Reformation, and you've already heard about that on this show. But you need this book, Born in Blood, The Lost Secrets of Freemasonry. Get it. The next book is by the same author, John J. Robinson. After he wrote Born in Blood, he was intrigued, and so he wrote Born in Blood about Freemasonry. Then he had to go back and research the history of the Knights Templar, and he wrote this book entitled Dungeon, Fire, and Sword. Dungeon, Fire, and Sword. The Knights Templar in the Crusades by John J. Robinson, author of Born in Blood. And I'm going to read to you from this flyleaf, but yeah, I will. Over the past 1,000 years, the bloodiest game of King of the Hill has been for supremacy on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, the site of the ancient Temple of Solomon. This book recounts the stirring saga of the Knights Templar, who were called the Christian warrior and monks who occupied the sacred mount in the aftermath of the butchery of the First Crusade. Recruited to a life of poverty, chastity, and obedience intended to lead only to martyrdom on the battlefield. They were totally dedicated to the pious paradox that the wholesale slaughter of non-believers would earn the eternal gratitude of the Prince of Peace. The Templars amassed great wealth, which they used to finance their 200 years of war against Muslims on the desert, in the mountains, and up the broad sweep of the Nile Valley. The Templars' reward for those 2 centuries of military martyrdom was to be arrested by Pope and King, tortured by the Inquisition, and finally decreed out of existence. But their legend and legacy just would not die. In telling the incredible story of the Knights Templar, the author's clear explanation of the cultural and religious differences among the Templars' enemies and friends in the Middle East gives fresh understanding of the people who populate this restless region. Here are the Sunnis and the Shiites, the Kurds, the Armenians, the Arabs and Turks, who figure so prominently in today's headlines. The similarity of their antagonisms today and those of 800 years ago are often so striking as to be eerie. Dungeon, Fire, and Sword is a brilliant work of narrative history that can be read as an adventure story, a morality play, or a lesson in the politics of warfare. But folks, be careful when you read these books that you do not believe them blindly, for sometimes the authors are taken in by the exoteric, but you still need to read them. Don't go away, folks. We've got to take our break. I'll be right back after this very short pause. Welcome back, folks. This is William Cooper for Swiss American Trading Corporation. Now, you've never heard me advertise any product or anyone or anything on this show unless I could solidly recommend it to you. I would use it myself, have checked it out, and know and believe that it is a good thing for all of us. And I'm not about to start now. How about a company, folks, that's been in business for over 11 years? How about a company that delivers non-confiscatable, non-reportable, hard assets directly to your door? They don't store them in a vault so they can be ripped off, like George Green just ripped off everybody who sent him money to buy hundreds of thousands and maybe millions of dollars worth of gold, which he kept. Well, he took the money and ran, folks, just like I always said he would, but Swiss American Trading Corporation will not. How about a company that writes a newsletter that openly deals with the imminent economic collapse? How about a company who considers privacy and discretion an integral part of their relationship with their clients? Folks, this is Swiss American Trading Corporation. Now, if you call right now, 1-800-289-2646. That's 1-800-289-2646. I'll say it one more time, 1-800-289-2646. 46 right now and state that you listen to the Hour of the Time, you listen to William Cooper, they'll send you their complimentary newsletter entitled Protecting Your Future. And the only obligation you have, folks, is to commit a quality hour into reading and considering the information in this newsletter. So call right now, 1-800-289-2646, and tell them William Cooper sent you. And now, folks, we continue with our bibliography. I hope you've all got pen and paper and you're writing just as fast as you can. Don't worry if you don't get them all. If you just get some of them and start reading, that's what counts. You can always order this tape and play it back and copy them down at your leisure. At some future date, we will print a bibliography, but right now, tell you the truth, folks, we just don't have time to do that. We're so much engaged in producing this radio show and research, and I'm writing a second book and traveling and speaking, and I'll tell you something right now, I barely have time to talk to my wife, and she doesn't appreciate that too much, so we're going away this weekend. The next book, The Future of Man. The Future of Man. Once again, The Future of Man by Robert Clark Graham. Robert Clark Graham. You can order this book for $7 from SC Books. P.O. Box 1562. That's P.O. Box 1562. Friendswood, Texas. Friendswood, Texas. 77546. Once again, $7 for this book from SC Books. P.O. Box 1562. Friendswood, Texas. 77546. Well, I'm really going to have to hurry to get a substantial amount of these books in. I hear somebody out there screaming and pulling their hair out. I can't possibly read all these books. Yes, you can. I've done it. I've read every book in my library, folks, and my library is bigger than most city libraries. If I can do it, you can do it. The only thing that will stop you is because you don't want to do it. And if you learn how to do productive research, some of them you don't have to read the whole books, believe me. You just have to learn how to do that. But you have to understand what the context of the book is before you take anything out of context. You can get in big trouble doing that, believe me. Next book is A History of Mathematics. A History of Mathematics, 2nd edition, by Carl B. Boyer. That's A History of Mathematics, 2nd edition, by Carl B. Boyer, B-O-Y-E-R. And the foreword is by Isaac Asimov, and this is published by Wiley, W-I-L-E-Y. Should be able, in fact, you should find that in most good bookstores. It should be on the shelf. Next one is the Dead Sea Scrolls. Be very careful about the Dead Sea Scrolls, folks, because everybody who's had their hands on them has been in the pay of the Rockefeller family, and the people who are translating them now are in the pay of the Rockefeller family. And they say that some of them have leaked out and that you're getting the real version. You don't know that. This could have been intentional leaks, and none of us know how to really translate these things. So the Rockefellers basically are telling us what the Dead Sea Scrolls say, and I can just about tell you what they're going to tell us right off the bat, that Jesus didn't die, and all kinds of things, and well, just wait and see. Just wait and see. This is called Understanding the Dead Sea Scrolls. Understanding the Dead Sea Scrolls. A reader from the Biblical Archaeological Review, edited by Herschel Shanks. Herschel Shanks, and this is published by Random House. Now I'm going to go a little speedy here because I don't have much time left, folks, and I want you to get as many of these as you can. Next one is Pagans and Christians. Pagans and Christians. This book is worth its weight in gold if you want to understand the early history of the church and the antagonism between the early church, the early Christian church, and the pagan religions. Pagans and Christians by Robin Lane Fox. Robin Lane Fox. Published by Knopf. K-N-O-P-F. Get it. Read it. You won't regret it. The next one is, that alarm you just heard go off is the bread maker. The loaf of bread is done, and I'm fixing to have a hot slice of bread with fresh butter on it as soon as I finish this broadcast, folks. Preparing for the 21st Century. Preparing for the 21st Century by Paul Kennedy. Published by Random House. Now that's a modern book about modern things. You still need to read it. Next one is a very important book, printed in 1798. It has been reprinted by the Americanist Classics. The Americanist Classics, published by Western Islands, Boston, and Los Angeles. You can find this book easily. It's called Proofs of a Conspiracy by John Robison, A.M., 1798. Proofs of a Conspiracy by John Robison, A.M., 1798. The Americanist Classics, published by Western Islands, Boston, and Los Angeles. If you didn't get anything else I ever told you, get that book and read it. Another one that's very important is called Time Bomb. Time Bomb. We'll give you the roots of the Liberty Lobby in the Spotlight and America Free Radio, and will open your eyes on the Nazi influence in this country. Time Bomb by Pillar, published by Arco. And this is very revealing. Another one, well, I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not going to risk misquoting it. This one is The New World Order. The New World Order, the Ancient Plan of Secret Societies. This is called The New World Order, the Ancient Plan of Secret Societies, by William T. Still. William T. Still. And who published this book? Let me see here. Huntington House Publishers. Published by Huntington House Publishers. Pick it up, read it. Remember, there's a lot of books called The New World Order. That's just one. I'm going to give you another one with the same title here in a few minutes. The next one is En Route to Global Occupation. En Route to Global Occupation. A high-ranking government liaison exposes the secret agenda for world unification by Gary H. Kah. Gary H. Kah. And this also is Huntington House Publishers. The next one is pretty good, called Dark Majesty. Now this author, Tex Mars, has published a plethora of books about the coming New World Order. Unfortunately, he really laces it with his own religious viewpoints, and that's okay because he's got a lot of hard facts in here, but it tends to turn some people off and they don't want to read the books because of that. If you're a Christian, you will have no problem reading this book. If you're not, you may have some problem with the religious beliefs of Tex Mars, but if you can struggle with that and get through it, it will open your eyes and you will get a lot of good facts from this book. It's called Dark Majesty by Tex Mars, The Secret Brotherhood and the Magic of 1,000 Points of Light. You see, he understands this quite a bit like I do, only I don't try to foist my religion off on the rest of you. I'm a Christian, but I'm a different kind of Christian. I'm a Christian only in that I believe in the Ten Commandments as given to Moses by God, and in the actual words attributed to Christ. Whether he lived or died, or was the Son of God, or was just a man walking on this earth, I believe that what he said is the most profound utterances ever spoken on this earth, whether they were ever spoken or not, folks. And I try to live my life by the Ten Commandments and by those words that Christ is credited with having spoken. The next word is Satanic Voices, Ancient and Modern. Satanic Voices, Ancient and Modern. Compiled by David Musa Pidcock. David Musa Pidcock. Now, this author is the head of the Islamic Party in Great Britain. So again, you have his fundamental religious beliefs mixed in this book with a lot of cold, hard facts, which I have checked and double-checked and are absolutely true. So if you, again, like the other book, if you can get past the religious viewpoint of the author and look at what the history of this thing is from his viewpoint and the facts that he delivers in this book, then believe me, you'll be way ahead of the game. It's published by Mustaqim, which I believe is the Islamic Party in Great Britain, and Mustaqim publishes Islamic art and literature. Now remember what I told you a long time ago. If you don't want to read opposing viewpoints or books written by people who believe in different religions or different gods than you do, if you don't want to read something that was written by a blatant communist, then I'm telling you right now, you're going to be whipped in this war. You're going to be beat down and enslaved in this war because you won't know anything about your enemy. You won't really know what the truth is because you'll be stuck, held prisoner in the dogma of your own beliefs. And I mean that, folks. A lot of us have been believing a lot of things for all of our lives that are absolute, total lies. And once you start your own research, you're going to find that out. And you're going to be probably as angry as I have been at times in my life. And you may do some stupid things like I have done at times in my life, which is one reason why none of you should ever, ever put me up on a pedestal, because I'm just like you. I'm just like you. I'm not any different. And I may be a lot more human than most, because I've gotten in touch with something inside that lets me feel and express my anger and my emotions and things that most people aren't in touch with. So when I'm angry, I scream and yell. But 5 minutes later, it's all over with. Don't put me on a pedestal. I'll fall off immediately, and you will all be disappointed. So if you don't do it, nobody will be disappointed. The next book is called The Unseen Hand. The Unseen Hand, An Introduction to the Conspiratorial View of History, by A. Ralph Epperson, my good friend who lives in Tucson, who's going to be a guest on this program here in about a week or two. And we're going to try to do maybe 3 or 4 episodes of the Hour of the Time with A. Ralph Epperson. This book, The Unseen Hand, is an incredible piece of work, and I highly recommend it. The next book is also by A. Ralph Epperson, and I've used this book extensively during our revelation of the mystery schools and Mystery Babylon in our series, our ongoing series. It's called The New World Order. The New World Order by A. Ralph Epperson. Get these books. Read them. If you can't find them, just wait. He'll be on this show pretty soon, and we'll give you a phone number and an address and a price, and you can send off and get them directly from him. This next book is extremely revealing. In fact, anything that this author has ever written, you should read. In fact, there's a center, a study center set up in Los Angeles called the Philosophical Society, which was founded by Manly P. Hall. It's the name of the author, Manly P. Hall, 33rd degree Freemason. Anything that he's ever written, get it and read it. This particular book is called Freemasonry of the Ancient Egyptians. Freemasonry of the Ancient Egyptians. Another good one to read that he wrote is The Lost Keys of Freemasonry, and anything else that you can find that's been written by Manly P. Hall. Get it and read it. Make sure you understand the symbology. Don't get caught up in the exoteric bullshit, because that's the way they hide the real meaning. Another one, because a lot of the mystery tradition is wrapped up in what they call the Kabbalah, which is the ancient Jewish version of the mystery schools. And don't get me wrong, folks. Not all Jews are involved in this. Not all Catholics are involved in it. Not all Protestants are involved in it. Not all blacks. Not all Arabs. Not all whites. But some of every one of them are deeply involved in this. They are the people who worship Lucifer. If you worship Lucifer, you can be a member too. This book is called Judaica. Judaica. The Blackwell Dictionary of Judaica. This is the Blackwell Dictionary of Judaica by Dan Kahn and Sherbach. Dan Kahn and Sherbach. And it's published by Blackwell. Blackwell Reference. Printed in Great Britain by T.J. Press, Padstow Limited, Padstow, Cornwall, but you can still order this from any bookstore. The Blackwell Dictionary of Judaica by Dan Kahn and Sherbach. Make sure you get it, because a lot of the Kabbalistic words need definitions, and you can find them in this book. Next one is a Dictionary of Freemasonry. A Dictionary of Freemasonry. A compendium of Masonic history, symbolism, rituals, literature, and myth. A Dictionary of Freemasonry by Robert McCoy. Robert McCoy. This book is worth its weight in gold if you know how, again, to interpret the symbolism and get at the esoteric meaning instead of the exoteric writing. Some of you already know what I'm talking about. Some of you have no idea what I'm referring to, but you will find out once you get into this. Another book that's worth its weight in gold is called The Mystery Religions. The Mystery Religions and Christianity. The Mystery Religions and Christianity by Samuel Angus. Samuel Angus, published by University Books. Published by University Books. The Mystery Religions and Christianity by Samuel Angus. And we want to thank our member, Spencer. Thank you very much. Spencer supplied us with this volume. Next one's been around for a long time, but again is worth its weight in gold. But you have to understand, again, the symbolism to read these books. A lot of these books were not meant for us to read and understand. They're meant for an adept, an initiate to understand. This is A History of Secret Societies, published by Citadel. A History of Secret Societies, published by Citadel, by Arkon Darul. Arkon Darul, D-A-R-A-U-L. Arkon, A-R-K-O-N, D-A-R-A-U-L. The Citadel Press, New York. A History of Secret Societies. Again, worth its weight in gold. The next one is The Occult Conspiracy. The Occult Conspiracy. Now, this book was written by someone who is in sympathy with the secret societies and may be a member, although I doubt from reading this, it doesn't sound like he is, but he is definitely in sympathy with them. So be careful when you read this that you don't get the wrong message. The Occult Conspiracy, Secret Societies, Their Influence and Power in World History by Michael Howard. That's Michael Howard. And this is published by Destiny Books, Rochester, Vermont. And the logo of Destiny Books is the sun and the moon. That should tell you something. Next one is America's Secret Assignment. Excuse me, I'm wrong. America's Assignment with Destiny. There's two books, and I had this confused with another one. The other one's called America's Secret Destiny. Throw that one out. That's total crap. That is esoteric from the word go all the way to the end. This one, though, you need to read. America's Assignment with Destiny by Manly P. Hall, and you will not believe what your eyes are telling you that your brain is reading. For this is an incredible book. It has incredible admissions, and you will begin to understand certain things that happen in history that you never could understand before. America's Assignment with Destiny by Manly P. Hall, and this is published by PRS, whatever that is. Let me look in here and find out so that you'll know. Philosophical, I should have known this. Oh man, I feel stupid now. Illustrated, second printing, Philosophical Research Society Incorporated. This is Manly P. Hall's organization. America's Assignment with Destiny by Manly P. Hall. Get it and read it. Another one that's extremely important that you read this book. Many people pass it by, snub their nose at it. Don't ever do that, folks. You're making a big mistake. This is the New Age Bible. The New Age Bible by Dr. John Rogers. The Hidden Truth Revealed. Just the symbology on the cover will send you reeling after you've listened to the episodes of the Mystery Religion of Babylon that we've already revealed on this show. This is published by Inner Light Publications. Inner Light Publications. The New Age Bible by Dr. John Rogers. The Hidden Truth Revealed. Get it? And read it, folks. Another one you need to read, which will connect someone else with all of this, if you can understand the symbology again, is called The Mormon Murders. The Mormon Murders by Stephen Nifa and Gregory White Smith. A true story of greed, forgery, deceit, and death. Read this book. Good night, folks. I hope you get these books. I hope you start your own library, and I hope you wake up. God bless each and every single one of you.
Okay, just give me a minute and I will update the information on the YouTube description to join and also on the D Live. If you would like to join, some of you, it seems like you guys have already read some of the books. I have not. I would love to have time to read these days. Maybe I just need to stop what I'm doing, plug in, and just read. Plug into the matrix, whatever you want to call it these days. All right, YouTube is updated. I might be right back. All right, so it's updated. I mean, there's not really that much to say. I mean, if anyone, at least I don't have much to say. I don't know about anyone else. Looks like, hi, Fly. Oh, here we go. We got somebody. Oh, it's Ryan. All right. Well, I doubt Ryan has read any of those books. He only reads Hillary Clinton books. So if it doesn't have anything to do with Hillary Clinton, I don't think Ryan reads it. Well, all right. So our next bit, we're gonna have our show. I don't know what you call it. We're gonna talk. We're gonna talk about President Trump's Space Force. Have you heard about that? Yeah. So, sixth branch of the U.S. Military Defense Department is going to be called Space Force. Oh wait, Perseus might join, so we can.
And you know what? They're gonna funnel another $800 billion towards it.
Oh yeah.
Because you got to keep those terrorists out of space.
Mm-hmm. Space terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, maybe we'll talk more about this in the next one. But whatever happened to Ronald Reagan's, or was it President Bush's Star Wars program? Remember, it's like a missile defense.
Ah, yeah, wasn't it? It was Reagan.
It was Reagan.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Reagan. Star Wars, get fucked.
He probably raised a lot of money for defense, and guess what? I don't think we have a Star Wars space defense program, do we?
Mm-mm.
No.
You don't need one. What, you gonna go out and build a Millennium Falcon versus a Star Trek Enterprise and shoot lasers at each other? Come on.
I think the Millennium Falcon would win. I'm just in that boat. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Actually, Donald Trump would want a TIE fighter.
You don't know.
Black one. Dun, 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 dun,
I think he would just prefer living on Tatooine in Jabba the Hutt's barge.
Yeah.
I think that's more Donald Trump style.
Having women pee on him.
I don't know about that. I think that's, I don't know. Maybe that's a thing for all presidents or people who want to be president. Who knows? Okay. Let's see.
Yeah, so I just got back. Well, I got back from court maybe 20 minutes ago,
Mm-hmm.
and the judge was like, "You need to give me something to make it so it's an ongoing thing." And I'm sitting there. He does this and he does that and he does it. She goes, "Okay, that's enough. 8 years." And I'm like, "What?" She's like, 8 years. He's not allowed to make any contact with you for 8 years. And I'm just like, fuck. Oh, I think I got too excited right there and then. It was so good to hear that.
Yeah.
So
That's good to hear.
8-year restraining order.
What's he
Sucks to
going to
be
do
me.
in that meantime? I mean,
just badmouth me to other neighbors.
oh, okay. But not directly to you. And
No. Well, he's not allowed to.
yeah.
He's not allowed within 5 meters. So
Can you convert that into feet? Because all right.
feet. About 15 feet.
Okay. Then why don't you just call it yards? 15 yards is, or 3 feet, or 3 yards is 15 feet. Why call it meters? Just call it yards.
Because we're not a backwards country nation like America. You notice most of the world uses metric system.
And do you realize the rest of the world isn't free?
More free than what Americans are.
I guess so. We kind of gave up our freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Idiots.
You sold your soul.
I did not. If I even have one. If I did, I didn't sell it. Damn it.
The government sold it. The government...
government put it up for auction. And I was
No,
like, hey, I didn't say I was. Look at that. I even get to...
What's the thing where they take your money without...
I know... hold on. This thing is... Woo! Alright. It's the same thing as... someone in chat knows.
Yeah.
You got to use a new link, Perseus. Every time we do this, it's a new link.
Yeah.
Give me a second. I'll give you the link to join.
What's the word called? What is it called when the police can just take your money without even... because they think you're a drug dealer?
Oh,
what's it called? Civil asset
forfeiture. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So that's what they did with your soul.
Well, they can't sell it if I don't agree to it. So, all right, here we go. Perseus Gold. Hey, Perseus, how's it going?
Yo, what's up?
I think he's coordinating. Oh, there we go.
There. Yep. Yeah, I don't want to use my camera right now. I'm at my mom's house.
No worries.
You got your camera on.
Oh, I thought I turned it off.
No, it's off.
No, there you go. No, it's off. Sorry, I'm looking at YouTube. My bad.
All right.
Yeah.
Bibliography.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you saw my message in the chat before I joined, but it was civil asset forfeiture.
Yep.
Yeah, we got that. Thanks.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And I could understand it existing for certain reasons, but it's obviously being abused so badly it needs to be removed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We have all these good ideas, and then it just gets abused, and it's like, well, so much for the good idea. We're just getting.
Well, I mean, that's like, it's like in game design. Since players are going to min-max and they're going to, troll the system and do all kinds of stuff, you have to design a system that can work in spite of it, not a system that looks good on paper but is riddled with it.
Give me an example.
So capitalism thrives on human competition, that without the gaining of money in a capitalist system as an outlet, people might have more other aggressive outlets for that competition.
Okay.
So for example, you have like a sociopath who's, in some corporation trying to climb the corporate ladder. 500 years ago, he'd probably be some mercenary captain out sailing to Italy or sailing out from Italy to go fight a war in some other part of Europe. It's like that personality is always going to be gravitating towards those types of positions, I
Yep.
think. And you need, those are the people who are like got us through the ice age, if you ask me. Like, if your tribe didn't have anyone like that, you probably didn't survive when the bear came to try to eat you, kind of thing. I think I think most of these types of people who just can't fit into modern society are evolutionary adaptations of our species as kind of like suborganisms as part of a larger meta-organism to fill these very specific roles, and they've simply outlived their usefulness in that capacity.
Yeah, I can see that. That's an interesting way of putting things. It's just like how it's like when we talk about, or this is that movie. Like you have an asshole, but he's our asshole, type of thing. You always want the asshole in your little tribe or group or something that'll do the stuff that you don't want to do just because they're assholes, in a way. Because it's just like having that. Who was the guy? He was some type of general that maybe we were talking about some other night. He would go ahead and castrate people that who didn't surrender. So the next town he went to, he would cut off their arms, castrate them, and pull out their tongues, and go to the next town and say, "Hey, these are the people who didn't surrender in the last town. So I'm gonna just say this once: you guys either surrender, or this is gonna happen to you." No one wants that guy, but you'd rather have him on your side than the other side.
Yeah, especially if they're willing to be reasonable enough that, oh yeah, surrender, you can run your own affairs internally, just pay us tribute, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's much more reasonable.
So we're basically, everything's just kind of rushed to this age, and we haven't really dealt with technology or dealt with the people who've kind of gotten us to this point. Is that kind of the
Yeah, and
gist?
it's kind of like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like in Star Trek with the whole Prime Directive. It's too dangerous to give a society technology they're not ready for. Well, what about the geniuses of a society giving the technology to the average to moronic people in the society? I mean, the same thing would still apply.
Yeah. That's a tough one.
But, well, I mean, I don't know. I think I've picked up on the fact that I'm a little bit more elitist than you guys. I'm not like super elitist, but I do think that hierarchies are important.
I don't think they're
And
important. I think they may serve a purpose. It depends on the system that you want to have.
well, I mean, you always need to have somebody at the bottom, right? Like your society needs that. First of all, it's inevitable. If there's not like one subgroup at the bottom, then everyone is technically at the bottom, and no one wants to be in that position. Like you need to structure things because there's always going to be jobs that need to be done that you can't get people to do with prestige. You can't get people to do with money because let's say you need too many people doing that job to pay them well, and maybe it's difficult, dirty, and dangerous. So let's say during the Bronze Age or the Iron Age, you needed shit sweepers in the streets all the time, and people who would go down into their primitive sewers and like try to unclog them with like sticks and stuff. Well, those jobs are the kind of jobs slaves are going to do, but they're 100% necessary, and no free man will do them. Without that, you don't have any of the high population density that led to technological innovation.
Yep.
It was simply par for course. You needed it.
Yeah, I see. I know your point. I get it. But can we function in a system without that occurring? Because it keeps getting up to this cycle that we want to break from. Or else, are you saying we just want to keep repeating the cycle, just have it enjoy the good aspects of that cycle and not the downturn?
Yeah, basically stretch out the good parts as long as possible and accelerate through the downturns as quickly as possible.
Does that mean that there will be a lot more death and quicker rather than a slow kind of
Well, no, actually, if you look at this, like the statistics about wars throughout history, wars that have a very low frequency. So if you're talking about, like, say, through the Middle Ages or the Classical era, so-called skirmish type warfare, which is the type of not like an officially declared war with a big campaign behind it. The people in the two countries are just constantly raiding each other, like as private individual groups, not necessarily as a government effort. That always results in higher casualties in the long run than a state actor moving into an area and systematically dominating it. There's far fewer casualties when state actors do that.
That's not true. It's demonstrably not true.
All right.
Like,
What do you talk-
give it like let's look at modern technology. Like, for example,
Oh, I'm
let's
not-
put modern
I wasn't
technology into
talking
that. And then even if we were to go back and look at something like the 300 years war, you know, like that's state run. That caused way more casualties than, let's say, I don't know, like Germanic. I'm trying to think of something that's era specific. Two examples that are of the same era. So I guess
No, but you're talking about wars of outright genocide, though, where the groups are trying to kill each other, not just, you know, competing for resources.
well, you see, to me, all warfare is about resources, in my opinion. These ideologies are excuses for war. They're not the drivers of them. Like, unless you're talking about the kind of groups that you were talking about earlier, just like bandits or these subgroups raiding each other. You know, all state actions. Hold on.
Well, okay, let me put it this way. So you have
Hold
two
on.
countries, each has 100,000 people in it. They fight for 300 years, and the casualties, you know, every generation, a bunch of people died, new people come up and replace them. If country A just killed country B outright at the beginning of that, say, 300-year conflict, there'd be 300 people dead in a hurry, but there wouldn't be 600,000 people dead from a stretched out war over centuries, just for example.
I wasn't able to pay attention to that. Sorry. I got to finish this up before I can talk. Sorry to interrupt. Go on, you guys.
That's right. Yeah, I could see that happening. I just want to see if we have a real life example. Like the 100 Years War didn't really wasn't really 100 years. Let's look at the casualties. But that and then we just have to do a comparison of a war that was comparable and quicker in that same era, but shorter amount of time.
Well, we could look at the Roman era, because that's an era where we have both state actors and these crazies running around. But
okay. Well,
let me just throw that.
The 100 Years War from 1337 to 1453. Death toll was 3.5 million. That's from bookofhorriblethings.com. Let's look at wars in that era, 1453, near the end of it.
Here's an example. I'm going to use for when the Spanish conquered the Aztecs. Okay, so when the Spanish came in and they were dealing with the Mexicla, the Mexicla were engaged in a style of warfare called the flowering or the blooming war. Okay. That's how it was translated. And what this meant is that the Aztecs would constantly attack certain neighbors of them, and including groups that they had totally enveloped territorially, but they never moved in to decisively finish them off. They would always just raid them for slaves, wreck all their stuff, wait a few decades, and come back and do it over and over and over again, because this allowed them to keep an elite army who had basically helpless people to practice against constantly.
Yeah. I mean,
well, the flowery wars were cooperative in many cases. Like there were different sub-states within the Aztec state. There was like the Mexica, and there was a few others, and they divided themselves up. But they would agree, we need sacrifices for the gods. How are we going to get them? So they would stage these wars with each other and capture sacrificial, sacrifices and slaves.
But say over the course of several centuries, don't you think in the end that could result in more casualties stacking up than if one group had just wiped the other out?
So strategically, in my opinion, the long-lasting wars are not even wars, but maybe engagements. Yeah, they're going to cause a lot more casualties, but actually taking resources from the enemy without an outright war, just raiding, was probably actually more beneficial, because the fear that you impose, or at least your army imposes on the other country. It's it gets the people who are very has that mentality for killing and pillaging and taking stuff, and allowing that within your country, but getting proceeds from it kind of gives them an out rather than kind of them defecting to the other country and doing it on your own people. And you get that the rule through fear. You don't want the people in your citizens in your country don't want that same thing happening to them. So you would rather want some groups, your army defending you, and rather doing it to the enemy. That way they don't have enough resources to do it back to your country.
Well, and the other point that Snork brought this up the other night. I mean, casualties are caused in the end by logistics, like people planning to do this and that, right? So maybe I missed your original point, Perseus. So let me just reiterate it as I understood it.
First one thing, killing itself against another place while you're raiding it for resources isn't a good thing if it's something that they have to grow. For example, if you're going to raid it again the next time, you're going to have less resources because you killed off the people that actually produce things.
Maybe that's why they used flowering and blooming as translation bywords.
All right, sorry, Garden, to cut you off. Go ahead.
So your point is that, just reiterate your thesis. Let's just start there.
So a conflict that is drip-fed violence over time is just going to keep escalating, okay? No, I said that absolutely wrong. Let me rephrase it. So a conflict that is drip-fed versus a conflict that is all at once. So the idea would be that a multi-generational conflict can result in higher casualties because over, say, the course of, say, 5 or 10 generations, like think of places of the world where people have just been fighting each other for time immemorial. In those places, more people have probably died who are the descendants fighting a 1,000-year-old conflict than if one side just outright killed the other at the beginning of the conflict. Just in the sense that, okay, so 1,000 years ago, Group A had 6 million people. Now they have 600 million people. In that 1,000-year span, over 100 million people have died in war. If they would have been, or not, I said that third number wrong, but you know what I'm trying to say, right? The idea is that each successive generation, the casualties will stack up more than if the smaller group was eliminated at the start.
So you're not making a differentiation between state actors and non-state actors. Like the two sides could both be state actors, or they could both be.
I brought up the same way that you brought up Rome. I was thinking in terms of like not organized nation states, not necessarily some tribal government, still the government of a tribe, but I don't think of them as the same way I would think of Rome.
But we also see like these larger empires and larger nations engage in wars for hundreds of years. We haven't seen one that's really engaged like in 1,000+ year wars, but so your point has nothing to do at all with nation states. Essentially, you're just talking about like the length of time a conflict takes place.
Well, the examples that I'm thinking of specifically when I think of this, I'm thinking about conflicts like that lasted between the city of Rome, and it was just the city itself and its nearest neighbor. They fought each other for 80 years, and by the end of the conflict, more people had died on each side than were population in the village when the conflict between them started. And little conflicts like that at like that level tend to like drag on a long time because it's more like, I guess it's not a war, it's just a feud between neighboring groups of people. It wouldn't fit the war. But when I'm thinking war, I'm thinking, detailed logistical plans are being drawn. They're moving in to try to, like, I guess it's not, I wasn't thinking of a situation like,
so you're saying
how Rome would move into a province, kill their elite, kill any of the men who were fighting in the army, but otherwise they would leave enough of it intact to be economically valuable afterwards.
Yeah. You're talking about the difference between like the way that like China fought wars and the way that like let's say Rome fought wars. Like China would fight wars of attrition and they would use total war philosophies, where you just went in and you killed everybody and you replaced them with Chinese people. Like, that's the way China fought a lot of their wars. Whereas Rome would, and European war in general would seek to just simply make the people submit and, have them fall under their rule. And you're saying that the total war philosophy causes less casualties over time than the European philosophy, let's say.
Yeah, and also you have, you don't have these centuries-long hatreds being stoked, leading to zealot movements and the suppressed groups and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And even if you don't want to consider it warfare, do you consider, say, for example, you have some group, a minority group that considers itself oppressed by some, colonial overlord? Let's say they're not like in an armed rebellion against the colonial overlord, but there's a whole lot of crime committed by people of that group against the group of the colonial overlords. Is that warfare against them, or is that just random violence that are individual cases? Because there's that also to consider.
It would depend. Like, is there an organized resistance, for example? I would consider organized resistance a form of warfare. But
Okay,
if you just have like some dude, like the British, come to your house and say you haven't paid your fucking sugar tax, and you shoot him in the face, then that's not warfare. You're just some standalone farmer.
Well, what about, say, a Pakistani moped gang in London exclusively robbing white pedestrians of their cell phones? Is that warfare against white people by Arabs, or is that just random crime happening?
That's just banditry. Warfare tends to have like a political connotation to it, I suppose.
Well, if it's government sanctioned, like the government's telling them to do that, now that would be I would consider as warfare.
Exactly. If like Pakistan was telling these people to go around and do that, then yeah, that would be warfare.
Well, what if tertiary organizations backed by the government of Pakistan were telling people to do these things?
It would be warfare, because they're proxy actors for the Pakistani state.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess that got super side railed, but do you understand my thesis then?
I think I do, yeah.
Like,
I
would
would
don't
say
have to agree with it. That's what I was trying to say.
It's worth like thinking about for sure. Like, which type of warfare causes less casualties? I would probably say that it's situational. Some if you're to parse out a certain piece of history, there are some conflicts in that piece of history where total warfare tactics killed more people, and there are some periods of some situations in that same period of history where these kind of drawn out conflicts end up creating more casualties.
Let's take it to the current age, Perseus. If we had a war now at the grandest scale to kill the most people with nuclear weapons, as opposed to having long, drawn-out wars like we currently have, which one is going to do most, have the most casualties over time at total?
I don't know. I think a nuclear holocaust type situation, unless we had like effective countermeasures put in place already, would probably result in more casualties. That said, depending on what countermeasures exist and the amount of bunkers or vaults or whatever you want to put your people in, I guess that could turn out differently. Just like, for example, even if it's something like, a space-based laser satellite that's intercepting their ICBMs as they're still launching kind of thing. You could have a nuclear war where the casualties are a lot lower because only one side dies.
Theoretically, that's true, but if there were to be a real ICBM conflict, there's too many weapons, and neither side would survive. But in theory, yes. Like, if one side could just wipe out the other, then that could be true.
But honestly, I think in the modern world, we're at more of a danger of all these small conflicts boiling over, in the sense that you have all these small pocket isolated problems that are just escaping centralized authorities' ability to deal with them. So it's kind of like, I think we're actually more in danger of having 1,000 small conflicts tear us apart than having one definitive one.
It's hard to say. Like, as you know, proliferation is inevitable. I mean, one of the basic rules of technology is a valued technology gets cheaper and more accessible and becomes more widespread the older it gets. So if the world keeps going on this path, it's inevitable that every nation will have WMDs of various sorts. So,
Oh, I mean, I'm convinced that civilians are going to have WMDs if they don't already within the next 10 years with the kind of degrees that are being pumped out of STEM programs now.
exactly. And with the accessibility to genetic technologies, like, people are going to be able to engineer diseases in their basement.
Hey.
Oh, yeah. And it's like,
no mentioning basements and engineering diseases when I'm in my basement. Come on.
It's that bat. It's going to give you rabies. But yeah, I mean, that's just warfare in the modern world is very different from the way this is a given. We're very different from the way that it was in the past. So it's hard to compare the potential for conflict now with events that have happened in the past, with previous conflicts. I mean, the technology has changed the whole paradigm of what warfare means and what you're trying to get out of a war, even.
oh, yeah. Like, as far as I'm concerned, war now, I mean, it doesn't even really need to be fought unless you're talking about it from a purely existential position. Like, well, how about we just kill everyone who's a potential threat? Other than that, resource-wise, very few countries, I think, would have to do it because yeah, global trade and like a globally centralized system obviously isn't good, but just in terms of being able to get goods around the world could easily eliminate all problems as far as that goes.
Yeah, when we say that we're like, these are resource wars, we're fighting resource wars in the Middle East, actually, that's not necessarily true. What we're doing is we're fighting economic wars. Like, we're trying to support a system. We're not trying to gather resources.
Yeah, it's about who controls the resources to have power within the system, not the resources themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, modern wise, yeah, I don't even want to think about a modern war, to be honest. I worry about that most of the time.
That wouldn't go towards your idea of accelerating the cycle.
Oh, that's the thing. I think it's inevitable. So here's the thing, okay? So I think that it doesn't matter if we have democracy now or some sort of, enlightened aristocracy and then some horrible oligarchy later or some kind of military junta at some point. Eventually that system is going to collapse due to predictable problems within that system. It'll fail for reasons unique to itself or from some sort of external technological paradigm change. And then some new system will have to evolve to meet the new paradigm. There's no perfect system and there never will be. So I can accept the fact that all that's going to happen, but that doesn't mean I want to suffer through it.
Well, and the other thing is like, given the nature of modern warfare, there might not be a chance to create a new system. There might not be something to build out of the ashes like there has been in previous eras of history.
Or at least not something that I'd be able to participate in. Because I'm certain that there are hidden bases and groups and whatnot that are prepared just for all this. They would probably be able to reemerge at some point and build something. But it's unlikely I'd be part of that group myself.
That's true. I mean, those people could survive. The problem, of course, again, is would their conflicts continue? Because in a lot of cases, when you just see devastation on both sides from a war, neither side is able to continue it, right? But when you have this bunker paradigm, this strategy, both sides can continue the war after the larger society has been destroyed. like you can go ahead, let's say, there's a bunker in Russia and there's a bunker in the US, and like both countries have been wiped out, but you got all these people in bunkers. Well, they'll continue, like they can launch a germ bomb at the other bunker, or they can use some other kind of technology at the other bunker. And they might continue to do that. Like crippling the larger society doesn't necessarily end the conflict.
Yeah, at this point, and personally, one of the reasons why I actually am pro-accelerationism, even though I understand the dangers you say about it, is that I think that the worst thing we could do is let the elite get to the point where they have robot armies, because then they really won't need anyone to even be loyal to them. Like at that point, it gets really dangerous.
I think we're past the point where we could, quote, accelerate past that. I think they will have robot armies, regardless of, like, what we do at this point. I mean, they already have them. They have the technology to create them at least.
Well, yeah. The thing is, though, is that's the thing. Let's say if they were forced to deploy whatever the best robot army they could in the next 5 years, would it be able to defeat the civilian population? I don't think that it would. If you gave them 20 or 30 years to work on it, I'd think totally differently. But, doing something to remove that. It's kind of like in Dune, the Butlerian Jihad. Thou shalt not make a machine in the image of the human mind, and religiously indoctrinate the population to be opposed to AI research.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, I just assume that the military is at least 30 to 40 years ahead of the civilian population as far as some of these technologies. I should say this, they have technologies that we would consider 30 or 40 years ahead of their time. So it's not inconceivable that they have thousands of drones and already built, already stored in warehouses, and they're just waiting to release them. Whether they intend to release them on their own population or against a opponent is a different question. But I think that they could very well have them now, like massive numbers of these weapons.
Yeah. Oh, when you were talking earlier about not the secret space program, the Space Force, the U.S. Space Force.
Yeah.
When I heard about that, I actually thought that it was just an effort to take the black budget space program off of the black budget onto the open budget. That's honestly what I thought it was a maneuver to do.
It could be. I think a lot of that black budget money probably goes into these crazy space programs. Like a lot of the X trillion dollars that are missing probably went into programs like that. I mean, we have conventions against space warfare, but give me a break.
Well, didn't the U.S. literally admit that they had the rods from God now?
I haven't heard about that. Like,
it might have just been some retired general running his mouth.
That's the beam, right?
Oh, the beam.
Are the rods, or are they the tungsten rods?
Yeah, the tungsten rods. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard anybody saying that they had them, but I could have missed something.
The thing is, though, if you think about it, it's so simplistic in design that I don't see how they couldn't have already prototyped and built something along those lines, even if it's not to the same scale.
Exactly, dude. Like, and I think the same goes for a variety of other technologies. Like, they must have them. That's why I'm firmly under the belief that we have like a higher level of anti-gravity technology.
Okay. Well,
absolutely.
That we're aware of.
We're starting to segue, and you guys can talk about this in the next
I just have one quick thing I have to ask Garden first, okay?
Sure.
I'm assuming that you watch the Electric Universe type stuff as well, Garden?
I've not seen any of Electric Universe.
Some of it's pretty outdated because the series started a long time ago, but basically it talks about all these discrepancies in the STEM fields where there are principals that should be interacting with the other people's disciplines, but people at the level in university aren't being told the way that they interact, and they're getting out of university, getting hired by some company, and then they're having to relearn all this stuff because electromagnetic force has more to do with how this works than they were taught in university. Kind of thing, where it's kind of like, oh no, electromagnetic force will have nothing to do with the way that the cell structure and molecular structure of these plants that you're growing is shaped. but what if we actually keep hitting it with standing waves and have it growing over top of an electromagnet? It's almost like the plant is able to, like, all of its cellular structures and molecular structures are much more geometric. They're much more aligned and sturdy than the kind of structures that form without those conditions being there. But biologists are not being told the effects of certain types of waves and fields in university courses that are related to biology. They're having to find that out when they're actually working in those fields outside of the academic environment.
It's like the Manhattan Project.
Yeah, compartmentalized
philosophy.
information.
All right, now there's a lot of things I would talk about right here, but okay.
Yeah, I'll wait till you
we'll leave it to another topic or open topic if you're still around, Perseus. But I'm gonna switch it to the next topic. You guys are more than welcome to stay on for the next one, which is just gonna be about President Trump's space force.
Well, we can talk about it again during this is an interesting topic.
Yep.
We'll
All
pick
right.
it up.
So people who are on YouTube and D Live, just stay on. The feed will go down and it'll come back up in a few minutes. All right. I'll see you guys in just a few minutes.